Representative Altendorf.
Thanks again. You know, I guess I want to bring to everyone's attention, and maybe you're aware, but the speed of what's happening this legislative session, they've introduced on the floor, I think we're over 1,500 bills at this time, 6 weeks in, and in a normal legislative session, we would be at about a third that. So we literally are moving at this breakneck speed, which is 3 times the rate of a legislative session. And so if you're not aware of that, I just want to bring this to your attention. We know that in Minnesota, there's a trifecta. And so we have all of these legislators that obviously have a really, really big, grandiose plan to push a very large agenda through. And some of it might be really good for Minnesota. But I would caution that some of it also is sloppy, some of it is bad, and some of it we absolutely don't want here in Minnesota. And so I want you to be aware of this because this really reaches outside of education. It will affect your schools if we are driving business out of the state of Minnesota. And so, you know, anywhere that you can bring awareness. I do think with this type of speed, with haste becomes waste. With haste, we have mistakes. And being in the minority party, we have shown again and again, for anyone that's following, but that we are stepping up and offering reasonable, very responsible, smart amendments to try to help improve legislation over and over and over, no matter what that topic is. And yet, all of our amendments are being completely denied. So this is what's happening in the state of Minnesota. When I was running, it's very interesting because, you know, nobody really wants us to be far left and nobody really wants us to be far right. You know, we really want to be working together in that middle ground. Somewhere in that area where it just makes sense, right? I believe 80% of us, you know, maybe higher, we all want the same thing, right? Right now, the state of Minnesota, it is becoming alarming how extreme we are moving to one side. And so I would ask you to follow along closely, to really follow along, because when we are offering these amendments in energy, you know, in education, we have public safety, we have gun bills coming through. And I know, you know, everyone falls differently on every issue. But it is dangerous, very dangerous to be moving so far to one side and to not be taking reasonable amendments and to be negotiating what's best for Minnesota, what's best for Minnesota. So the one subject I just want to bring up, because this is going to affect schools, is if you are aware of, you know, what's the paid leave? The paid leave. Sorry, totally blanked out. The paid leave bill that's coming up. Family medical leave. And that will affect you greatly in the school districts. And so I'm very concerned because as we've come to the floor on these different debates, and it doesn't matter where you stand, you know, on these different debates, whether you were for the energy bill or against it, whether you're for abortion or against it, we are bringing forth really, truly good amendments to try to find that middle ground. And with this family leave bill that's coming down so fast and so quickly, and then showing that this is a one-way show, this is going to affect you down the road, because this mandate, if this gets put into place, it will affect every employer. So every county, every state, all of the schools. So as we're talking about adding to your general fund and adding money to the schools, you need to be aware of the mandates that are coming and then deducting from that bottom line to the point where you might not be able to be operable. So I'm hearing from the schools today, you know, I heard from several of you that we're having staffing shortages, that we're having problems finding teachers. What happens when we recklessly push through a bill like this, that you now have to provide for every teacher, every employee? You know, it'd be like equivalent of having 1.3 people for that one teaching position. If we can't staff now, how are we going to be able to staff if that gets pushed through? You know, in my committee this week, I heard a bill on unemployment insurance, you know, offering it for our unlicensed employees at the schools. And what we brought up, which I think is very, very reasonable, is, does this bill have unintended consequences that, you know, because schools don't shut down in the summer, we all know that, right? So some of the people who might not be licensed, but they actually work at the school during the summer. If we offer them unemployment insurance, and now we are incentivizing school employees to not work during the summer, what are the schools going to do to staff themselves?
Well, can I answer your question?
Yes.
It's not going to help. All right, that won't help. And increasing, I don't know all the details of the FMLA years, but I would say that it would be problematic to increase it for us. We already are. I mean, I was the Spanish sub yesterday.
What I can ensure you, Representative Altendorf, is that we are well aware of what paid family and medical leave will do with 24 weeks, 12 and 12 weeks added upon, because I hope you noticed today that our superintendents and executive directors in Southeast Minnesota, we are very engaged in this process. And we have some people here, and I've got to hand it to our folks at MASA, MSBA, MREA, and C, because on a weekly basis, we will have 4 legislative updates from each of those individuals at least. And we know what the effects, I even get the Rochester Area Chamber of Commerce newsletter, and I know they certainly have an opinion on the paid family and medical leave bill. So there are numerous places, and we need to stay engaged, because as we mentioned earlier, our mission is critical to what happens next year. We are dealing with staffing shortages. We're dealing with substitute shortages, and we know what the effects will be on our school districts going forward. And we're paying attention, I assure you.
So that really is my question, is I just want to bring this to your attention, and that we need to like bring people to have some sort of accountability. And whether that comes from you, whether that just comes from public awareness, that's, you know, being in the minority, we can like throw our bodies in front of the train that's racing through. Like, you know, we can try to throw an amendment, we can try to throw a wrench in the gears, we can try to slow them down. But at the end of the day, they have shown over and over that they are not accepting any amendments. There is no coming to middle ground. There's no negotiations happening. And so the only way we can bring some sort of accountability to Minnesota right now is truly the public. The public needs to get involved with what's happening. And it needs to come from you and it needs to come from public awareness so that we can try to just be reasonable in Minnesota, because I don't think any of us wants what's happening right now to be so extreme. Thank you.